This is the DLR Cast, the essential podcast for fans of Diamond David Lee Roth. All right, greetings once again. You've got the DLR Cast, the podcast by and for fans of the Diamond David Lee Roth. I'm Steve, as always, joined by my good friend Darren, save it for the air, Paltrowitz.
Sidebar, Darren Paltrowitz over here.
There we go. Exactly.
It's great to connect, and that's the first part of it, because let's face it, there's such a drought of David Lee Roth news that every time we get on the air, it's partially an excuse to catch up on things. But let me ask you, before I weigh in, have you heard anything about Diamond Dave?
I have not heard anything. Was there some artwork last week that was posted maybe that looked really cool? Once again, something that I went, yeah, I don't know what the hell that means by that, but I'd frame it. I would look cool on my wall. Do
you remember what day in particular he posted that artwork? And it's okay if the answer is no.
I do not remember, my friend.
Eddie Van Halen's birthday.
Ah, Christ.
So status quo here, Wolfgang, love you, Pop, miss you. Sammy Hagar, hey, miss you, Ed, we were best friends or whatever. Everybody's doing their Eddie tributes, and here's Dave with artwork.
Okay. Now, read between those smudgy acrylic on canvas lines.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything telling I couldn't get, and I can create some good ones, and you're even better at it. I couldn't get any hidden messages out of that artwork.
Absolutely nothing, to quote the movie UHF. Absolutely nothing. Nothing's there.
I suppose it could be a little bit, it could be. I suppose we would have been really shouting from the rooftops if it was another one of those strange Frankenstrat guitar things that he did a couple weeks ago that just, let's just say I wasn't a fan of that whole series of artwork up there and the resulting commotion that went on by him claiming credit for it, which was just like one of those, I hate to say it, but we always say we're not fanboys, those often cringe-worthy moments that Dave gives us at times.
But I heard from a source I am not going to identify that not all of the art that he posts was painted that week.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't.
Has been sitting around.
Oh, I'm sure it wasn't. I'm sure he's got, there's a backlog. And for all we know, whoever's posting it could be using Hootsuite and just scheduling posts at random. We have no idea if that was by design. We don't know. Does Dave remember Eddie Van Halen's actual birth date every year? Does he happen to look at the calendar and went, it's January. Oh, today's
if you had an assistant, which he can afford an assistant.
Oh, he no doubt has one.
If you had an assistant and you were running it like an office, you would have anniversaries, birthdays, big events. You'd know what day the Super Bowl was. You'd know what day the Jewish high holidays were, so you don't call the person on the wrong time. You would have all that out there. So I would assume if there's an assistant, Eddie's birthday would be on that calendar.
Yeah, I would imagine, I would think so, but that means that it's pegged to post on that day. I mean, I'm inferring, of course, if I'm running social media, I'm finding reasons. Well, I mean, listen, when you're doing a social media calendar, you're looking at the calendar and you're deciding what days you're not going to post certain things on different days because one, it might not get as much traffic. Two, it's just might not be a good look.
Right. But some buzz I heard, again, from an unnamed source is there is nothing going on in that camp. Like that, I say that because it's the opposite of, oh, there's something coming. Oh, there's something in the works. It's quiet. So
I wish there was something resembling a strategy. I've been thinking about this recently in regards to the lost John 5 album, saved for but 3 tracks. And I was thinking of this also in regards to part 2 of our interview with Melissa Reiner, the woman who played violin on the No Holds Barbecue film and the music, and makes a brief appearance in the actual movie. And So what I'm getting at is I wish there was some sort of strategy to actually release this stuff. Drop a track a week or once a month and just get it out there and just start putting it out there. And you don't even have to put it all together in an album, which I would love to see, to actually have something. Can you imagine a cool digipack or something with Dave's artwork inside of it? I mean, something for us to get, to buy, to hold, to listen to hear. I mean, the music from Noel's Barbecue, all those cover songs, the stuff in the vaults that we always talk about. Some sort of strategy versus you and I messaging each other on some random Thursday night. Dude, did you see that Dave just posted some song?
Yeah.
That's what we get. That's all we get.
Well, my wormhole keeps getting deeper and deeper. I didn't know until the last week that Dave had a different second guitarist on those Kiss dates than he did in Vegas. There was a different guitar player for those 20 shows.
Really?
Yes, it was not Frankie Lindia on guitar. It was Jake Faun, Faun, another LA-based guitarist of British descent. I shouldn't say another because Frankie is not British, but another LA-based guitarist. Totally different guy, did all those shows.
Wow.
So the drummer changed in the middle of the Kiss dates. This one I confirmed. And the guitarist changed between the Vegas 2020 run and the 2020 Kiss dates. So there's even more turnover than it goes. And I spent even more time on my rabbit hole. And I found somebody posted like 45 seconds of a friends and family-ish gig that Dave did in 2019 before Vegas at SIR Studios. And that is Chris Griotti on lead guitar. And I believe you do see Brett Tuggle playing on stage there as well.
Wow.
So this rabbit hole just keeps continuing to prompt more questions and answers.
I would bet you've got some sort of Glenn Beck circa early 2000s chalkboard with like all sorts of flow charts and organizational charts and arrows. I would bet that you've got a wall somewhere in your office there that looks like one of those CSI or crime things where they have the masking tape out and the post-it notes all over the place. What if this? Who was guitar here? Why was this person out for 3 dates? It is like unraveling a mystery.
So the more this is where I'm at right now on Dave from 2019 to present day. So the backing band was originally Rocket Rashad's son Kane on drums. The bassist was Ryan Wheeler. The guitarist is Chris Griotti. And then there was a second guitar player named Andrew. I'm forgetting his name right now. He lasted through the rehearsal gig. He was a cool Keith Richards looking guy. And Tuggle on keyboard and guitars.
And hold on, this was as of when? What's your time frame there for that lineup you just mentioned?
2019, when he knew, hey, I'm going to do these Vegas shows in 2020.
Okay, now did that lineup go out and actually play any dates?
Just this rehearsal show.
Okay, because that's what I thought. Because the moment you said Kane, I was reminded of the interview we had with him in Rocket several episodes ago, which a little sidebar we talked about for those who didn't hear last week's the episode number 54. We talked about this amazing David Lee Roth concert I found on YouTube that was posted in December 20th of 2021 from California, radio show where they played 8 songs from Your Filthy Little Mouth with, first time I ever heard him on video or on audio, Rocket Rashad, and he's killing it live. Yeah, it's a kick-ass concert. Yeah. So I digressed a bit, but so that lineup you just mentioned, January of when was it? You said.
I think it was spring 2019.
Okay, I was going to say spring 2019 because the Kiss dates, well, that's middle. So figure that was mid-year.
Winter 2020.
So the Kiss dates were 2020. Yeah, because that was the last big show I saw, March of 2020, before everything got shut down, was Kiss and David Lee Roth in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yes. So that band eventually, Andrew was let go. Chris was let go or quit. And Brett Tuggle found his way out and into Lindsey Buckingham's band.
Right. That we know.
So we know that. So eventually Alistrada comes in and Frankie comes in. So those are the 2 guitars. And Mike Musselman is on drums like he was for that rehearsal show.
Right.
And we still have Ryan Wheeler on bass. Then somehow in the midst of that, Danny Wagner, the former drummer and keyboardist in Warrant, somehow goes from being drum tech to keyboardist in place of Tuggle, who was the MD and sees his way out. So the MD changes as well. You follow me so far?
I'm having a really tough time with it.
Then at a certain point in time, we land on the lineup that plays the Vegas 2020 shows, which is Mike Musselman on drums, Frankie Lindia and Alistrada on guitar, Danny Wagner on keyboard, Ryan Wheeler on bass. Somehow, after these Vegas shows, Frankie Lindia is gone. He's replaced by Jake Fawn, the guitarist that I've just learned about, who also has long blonde hair like Frankie, also is from LA, also can shred and is awesome, but he's British. He's not from LA originally. Then somehow in the midst of that, a couple of shows into the Kiss tour, Mike Musselman is not on drums anymore. And Mike Musselman, who we kindly had on this podcast and was awesome, and is replaced by Francis Valentino, who remains. So
refresh everyone's memory. Why did Mike Musselman leave in the middle of tour dates again?
Do you remember our interview with Kane where he said that Dave is very hard on the drummers?
Yes, and that's what I was going to bring up. After Greg Bissonette, there is a long list of drummers that Dave played with, basically, and a good number of them not for very long.
Yeah, I'm still working on this Roth mystery as well. So you probably have steam coming in out of your ears, but the DLR Band album is not the same lineup on all the tracks, and there's 2 tracks where the bass player is Tom Lilly, Lilly. And I reached out to him, and he might be speaking with us in the near future. Great guy. Nice guy. He had nice things about playing with Dave, nice things to say about that. And I'm like, so did he do anything besides, playing on those 2 songs? He's like, yeah, I helped Dave with auditioning a drummer that he tried out that, we didn't hire. And you're like, wait, what? So Ray Luzier was not the only drummer? Then he said something like, and Billy Sheehan wasn't available. And you're like, wait, Billy was talking to Dave? Because didn't Billy Sheehan leave the DLR Band in like a not...
You mean the Eat 'Em and Smile Band?
Yeah, it was
after Skyscraper, and basically it was nobody said the quote unquote time-honored musical differences, but that's kind of what it was. I mean, I don't even know if there was an official announcement, or kind of an official, let's say, talking point, but it was pretty much, he had no songwriting credits on Eat 'Em on Your Filthy Little Skyscraper. Geez, right. I don't think he had any songwriting credits and played backup vocals, and it was just, it was certainly quite the different record than Eat 'Em and Smile, as everyone knows. And so I think it was kind of just the musical direction directed in a different place for Billy and for Dave, I guess.
Yeah. So what I'm getting at is I don't think that the musical chairs is a new thing. We saw with Rocket, I think we've done the math. Rocket came in and out of the band 3 times. I believe that's what we figured out. And then Desi Rex was on guitar for like some of the Little Ain't Enough world tour that mostly was around Europe. And so these musical chairs, the more I think I've figured it out, the more players I just keep discovering. And it makes you think that with this over-analysis of everything's going on, that he's not just sitting in his home not thinking about the music. I think that he's thinking about stuff, and the retirement was never on the table.
Wow.
That's where the sidebar master is at. Now, am I way off base here in surmising? That's a big word, surmise. In going, the lineup has changed this many times. The plan has changed this many times. He was never going to retire. That was a marketing angle. Am I insane for saying that?
I don't think so. And I'm puzzled by that as well because, well, why? I don't, here's the deal. You announce it, especially at this age. I mean, you look like I think the plan was, I think it had to be, I think it had to have been a bit more, that would just be almost too obvious. Right. And in the event that something happens where, oh, I don't know, during a global pandemic, you can't do any of the dates at all for whatever reason, whether you get it or you don't want to tempt fate because some band members have got it or who knows. I mean, Omicron was taken off like crazy. I mean, it was just, it wasn't, we're talking here February 1st.
I have confirmed that he himself did not have Omicron. I can confirm that.
Okay.
And is it Omicron or Omicron? Because one sounds cooler than the other.
I'm not exactly sure. They both sound something that
either way, he did not have it. That was confirmed. Yeah, so he's fine.
Both pronunciations remind me of the remnants of some cosplay convention in a Radisson hotel somewhere in the Midwest. So, but yeah, I had guessed. My bet that he did not have COVID. If anybody could be in a bubble and stay away from the fray and possibly getting sick with it, it would be him. But remember too, the guy's 68 years old or whatever. So if it's COVID related, so there's another mystery. If it's not him, which you can confirm it's not, it's got to be a band member or somebody. Nobody's speaking, nobody's saying anything. People get better from COVID. Most of the 98%, whatever every single band that's had to cancel dates have rescheduled dates. Why weren't these rescheduled?
Well.
So I think if you announce what I'm getting at, if you announce you're retiring, it can't be a marketing ploy because in the event that like everybody else, the odds are so great you're going to have to cancel and reschedule because of COVID, and you say you're retired. I mean, it's kind of, you can't get more anticlimactic saying that's it. It's like, it's Lucy pulling away the football, or it's the line in the sand that keeps moving. It's like, okay, that's it. Once these dates happen in March, we're retiring.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
So many things don't make sense on this whole thing. So in turn, we just have to guess, assume, and worry and wonder. And then at the same time, I check in every now and then on the Roth Army fan base message board, which we've talked about a few times on this.
Yeah.
Yes. Seshmeister, great guy. Some of them are great guys. They are not talking about David Lee Roth in the present tense. Everything they're saying is the past tense. Ultimate Classic Rock and Loudwire, whenever they pick up a Roth-related thing, it's all past tense.
Right.
When I mention his name in this household, my better half does not want to hear it after how burned we were.
No, after 10 days in Vegas. No.
Yeah, so what I'm getting at is like, this fan base needs resuscitation or it is dead, unless like somehow they come out with the 1984 era action figures. If they do that, there's hope.
The thing that gets me about this, well, one of the many things that gets me about this, and we had brought this up before, is that if ever there was a place for him to go out next to LA and like really retire, it's Vegas. And I said it before, my biggest fear was that these dates were going to be a 4 or 5 piece band with really no bells and whistles, with really no risk. I mean, this is the type of thing now, is the past few years, the past 10 years, he was ahead of his time with the Mambo Slammers. Now is the time to do a residency in Vegas, baby, with something akin to a mix of a hard rock band and the Mambo Slammers, or you get a horn section come out there, you mess with the arrangements, you do some different things. I'm not saying you completely turn it around, but in listening to, was it Beautiful Girls on that Your Filthy Little Mouth? And if I remember that show back from 94 that we were just talking about, and if I can't remember, was it A Little Luck? There was a song on that, one of the other songs they play on Your Filthy Little Mouth, there with the horn section, and Beautiful Girls, it's got Dave Whalen and a great harmonica breakdown. Yeah. It's that sort of thing with, all the things he's hinted at through the years, whether via all his influences, via what you hear in the little acoustic bits that always went on before Ice Cream Man, the what we know from the Mambo Slammers, what we know for previous solo records, where there's some horn dabbling and there's some different takes, where there's a country-esque song, whatever it might be. Man, this is where you go out in Vegas and do this, what you've always wanted to do. I mean, do you know what I mean? I mean, so
100%
I was fully prepared to go, yeah, no big surprises on the set list. These are the last gigs, and he's got a faceless rock band. No offense to the guys in it, but what I'm saying, you wanted something a bit more.
Because of him. I think that there are stars in this band that if he let them do press and he pushed them the way that he did Vi when he was on half the magazine covers with Vi in the Eat 'em and Smile era and going, this is my band. These guys can play, have personality, look cool. There's nobody embarrassing in this band.
No, but those days are long gone, and we discussed this at length a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason Becker was the last guitar player that would have shared space with them, and certainly shared space, was the last guitar player really to share space in any interviews or any press for whatever, for an album or another project. I mean, even when he talked about how hot the solo band is, he never mentioned a name. Oh, we're doing the block, and we've got... Do you know what I mean? Never mentioned names. Now, granted, a lot of them, it was apparently a revolving door for several places, but for several of these guys. But once it settled in, there is no, these guys were sidemen in the very, very definition of the word.
But by the way, I've heard that the block is a fallacy.
Yes, I remember this. Yes.
I've heard that the 70 rehearsals does not mean that he was there.
No,
for many of them.
But did he need to be? Which is a perfect segue into part 2 of our episode, because if you think that we're leaning in any way that we're questioning Dave's work ethic or how serious he takes his stuff, well, we've got yet another interview, part 2 of Melissa Reiner, that can put any wrong notion of that to rest, to bed, because this is yet another person who said he's very particular and exacting on how he wants things, and he should be, and he's really good at what he does.
Yeah, and when I spoke with Melissa Elena Reiner, sometimes you have to put the middle name in there to catch all the kind of stuff, and she's written a couple of novels, and she has a movie in the works.
Yeah, and check the show notes. It's all in there. She's got the biggest resume you've ever seen.
She's keeping
and busy. A TED Talk, for goodness sakes.
Yes. We hear some more into how Dave manages the band and how the filming and production went there for the video, and an interaction that she had with Team Dave after the video. In other words, it's not like she just went there, filmed her couple of days, did the session or two and left. There was a little more than that. It wasn't quite, hey, I want you to tour the world with me on violin, but there was recognition shown in the story of, hey, you know what you're talking about violin, and I want you to teach me stuff. So this is one of those stories that leads into the Dave wants to learn everything and he will outwork everyone. This is one of those interviews, as opposed to, God, he's annoying. One of those Dave interviews.
If he's not going to master it, he's going to work his ass off to come as close as you possibly can to master it, to soak it up and learn as much as possible. You just reminded me, and this has been mentioned several times before and in the episode, but in the Eruption book, Eddie spent in one of those Guitar World episodes, Guitar World interviews, when Eddie was doing the press, which I think was his only interview for A Different Kind of Truth, he mentioned in particular, Stay Frosty, and then that's Dave playing the acoustic intro on that, and Dave brought in basically the bones of that song as an acoustic song, and he said Dave's really good at acoustic guitar. I mean,
there's that really good video on YouTube of him playing guitar in front of the Japanese tattoo artist Horiyoshi, where he just busts out a blues riff. Now, let's play devil's advocate here. Could it be that Dave just learned that one riff and he can just do that riff perfectly, like him on the steel drum or the 3 lines in Portuguese? Maybe, but it's a really impressive riff that he just blasts out in front of the tattoo artist.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt that he's fairly proficient. Where, I mean, he's got a good catalog of blues riffs in there and some cool open tuning stuff and I'm not saying he'd be great in 1925. Wouldn't be laughed off a front porch in Mississippi, but I think for what I think if Eddie's giving you some sort of props, it's because you got some skills there.
Well, then I have a question, something I've never really thought about. The acoustic intro at the beginning of Ice Cream Man. I've read a thing or two that said, "Oh, Dave played that." If he played that, that is a really, really good part. But then when you watch him actually play Ice Cream Man live, he's really sloppy from a technique perspective in terms of how he's playing those 3 open chords. So in other words, was this one of those things where he just practiced and practiced and practiced and got this intro perfect? Or did Eddie just play that?
I think on record between Eddie and Ted Templeman, there was not a single guitar note from anybody else other than Eddie on that first record. No fucking way. I'm sorry. I don't believe it. Are you kidding? The result of a lifelong dream and just as well rehearsed as that band was, I don't think they left anything to chance.
I don't remember if this is from Dave's book or another Van Halen book, where they said that the Van Halen 1, everything was live instrumentally, except they added in a second guitar to Ain't Talking About Love, like they added in a rhythm.
Yeah, I think a couple overdubs, but everything was, yeah. And I know from interviews and different things I've read through the years that Templeman has said just these guys were extraordinarily well rehearsed, and they nailed it in the studio. They were so seasoned and from playing so much live and so good at what they do. They didn't have to fix. We'll fix it in the mix. There was not a lot of that.
But there's a mistake in Eruption that they left in. You would barely notice it. It was just a flick of a switch that was wrong that changed a note. But if everything was live, then how would Eddie have put down the acoustic guitar in Ice Cream Man and then picked up the electric without?
Well, I mean, it might have been one take. What I'm saying is, I mean, for a song like that, I mean, was it recorded? Though, there might have been a time where instead of an overdub with a second guitar play, you might go, okay, we need to fix a snare sound on that or whatever, and maybe they something like that. But for the most part, I would bet you that was recorded separately, and they just put it right on the, just tape it right onto the tape. So.
Well, either way, I'm not disputing the fact that Dave is a competent guitarist. And then if you look in the A Different Kind of Truth liner notes, it mentions keyboard being played on Tattoo by him. Now, granted, it's a weird Moog riff that, it doesn't take a lot of skill usually to do that kind of playing. It's more about the gear than it is the playing. But I'm not doubting that he didn't put the work in on guitar, and hence the Stay Frosty arrangement. That's really cool. And that's your favorite song on that record, I believe.
Stay Frosty?
Yeah.
That song just, the lyrics are amazing. They're just rapid fire. That's some of his best lyric writing. I know we've talked about this before with Eric from the VH News Desk. I know we've talked about it intermittently, but goddamn, you're a Different Kind of Truth. That's a hell of an album to go out on. And I think Dave sounded great. They all sounded great. It's the heaviest Van Halen record. I stand by that. You listen to that bass sound. The rhythm section is as heavy as any record that they've done. Heavier than OU812, which I think that was produced by, I think, Andy Johns, who always brought a pretty heavy rhythm sound, befitting a guy who engineered Zeppelin records, if I remember correctly. And Dave's lyrics are just, the Trouble Would Never. I mean, you and your blues. You kidding me? All that album, it kills. However, I do have a bone to pick with Tattoo. The chorus is repetitive too much. Instead of going tattoo, tattoo, I mean, I always change it to the second time in the chorus to just I won't sing it, to brand new tattoo. Just mix it up. But that's just me.
That it's still a head scratcher that was the single, that was the thing to relaunch the band on a new record label. But hindsight is 2020, and that's what you get.
And we got a good one. So
But what we've learned this episode is we don't know anything.
We just spent 30 minutes to say we don't know a goddamn thing.
Like, I've heard things from reliable sources, and those sources are going, I don't know, man. That's the crux of a lot of that kind of stuff. But Melissa Reiner is not the only interview coming to this podcast related to the No Holds Barbecue.
No, we've got some good interviews lined up and in the can. So
more coming soon. And hey, I thank you for bearing another sidebar or 20.
Thank you for spending your time with us, folks. We all love the downloads, love the streams. Hit that like and subscribe button to the Paltrocast if you're watching on YouTube.
And come on, your podcast too, Steve. Come on.
My podcast doesn't exist, man. I quit that business back in September. So I devote my time to the DLR cast.
I guess you're not looking at the change.org petition for it to come back. Jeez.
I've long been ruminating relaunching it in some other fashion, some other format, talking about something else, but it just goes the rumination stage. So
yeah, rumination. That's a great nation. That's a Roth lyric, is that?
It could very well could be, my friend.
I think that eventually we'll have to come up with the Roth lyric generator. And
somebody's got that out there.
Generator. It really is just Mad Libs when you think about it at this point in time.
It kind of is, isn't it? Kind of is. Well, here's an idea for a future episode. Top 10 Dave sayings that we hear the most.
I'm into it. We'll do that after our what is Dave doing this week episode. No, I'm into that idea. We'll talk about that one offline, but hey, no, thanks to everyone for listening. Thanks to Steve for putting this all together, and nothing but yeah.
My pleasure. Melissa Reiner up next. Thanks, folks.
Yeah, till 05, 06, something like that. And what he had told me when I got to interview him years ago was that he only quit the Dave band because they didn't do new material. He felt like it was a Van Halen cover band and he didn't want to do that. And so I think between Dave and Korn, he played with the brothers from Stone Temple Pilots in a band that had one album on DreamWorks. So I think Dave was his graduation to a good career. And you find a lot of people that the Dave gig may not have been the best paying thing that they ever did, but it was what gave them the credits to get the real credits and have a career, a graduation of sorts.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I put every single person I play with on my CV because you never know when it's going to lead to something. Sometimes someone will look at your CV or look at my website or whatever, and they'll say, oh, you played with this, or you played on this like random TV movie. You never know what's going to excite someone or what's going to make them think, oh, you'd be good for my project. So, yeah, I mean, Dave, it was an honor to work with Dave. Now it's funny because I was never like a huge Van Halen person. Like it's a little before my time, I think musically. And it just wasn't the kind of, I mean, I listened to Radiohead, like I was definitely more of like a Britpop person. Like I was listening to like I was listening to Oasis and Radiohead and like maybe a little bit of like Madonna, and I was into No Doubt. And, yeah, Van Halen was just like never really on my radar, but obviously like I knew some of their big songs and I mean, he's wildly famous. I mean, Dave on his own is wildly famous. Yes. One of my best friends from music school from Peabody, who was a classical percussionist, started out life as like a heavy metal rock band drummer in like when he was in high school, and that got him into classical, but he was a massive Van Halen fan. Like I remember calling him when I got the gig, and he lives back east, and I was like, dude, you're never going to believe who I'm playing with. And he's like, David Lee Roth, that's amazing. Yeah. Diamond Dave, so like I was thrilled, but it wasn't like, I mean, I didn't really listen to Van Halen, if you know what I mean. So it was an amazing credit, but like, it wasn't like I knew all the songs. Like I didn't know all the songs, but actually for that video, we didn't do any Van Halen. You did Mean Street, which is excellent. And is there another song? I'm looking at my notes here. I don't know. I'm glad you made notes. Cause I mean, I didn't even know what the hell I was playing. Honestly, like I was just like, all right, we rehearsed a lot. I think, yeah, you asked about where we rehearsed. I think we mostly just rehearsed at Dave's place, Dave's mansion. I mean, he had this amazing, gorgeous property out in like Pasadena kind of area. Yeah. And in that era, he was still rehearsing everyone at the house. I think it changed sometime in the last 5 to 10 years that it's now like, you guys go to a studio and when you're ready, I'll come by. Oh, I see. Well, he is older. I mean, I think he was really invested in the process. I think it was really exciting for him. Like, as I said, I remember recording just the ELO, just my track, which there's a lot of violin on that ELO stuff. It's like half the music, half the song is violin. And then I had to record over myself 7 times to make it sound like a section, which was great because I love doing stuff like that. It's a challenge and I'm good at it. And I can like, and I remember, and it was fun. And Dave was there and he's like, yeah, great. You nailed that one. And then he'd be like, no, let's go back that one. You know, like he was into it. I think he loved the process, to be honest. Like maybe he's changed. I mean, he is older, right?
Well, older is relative because I think him at 69 years old is a lot more youthful than anybody's grandparents. It's more youthful than my parents are. My parents are not doing splits or kicks or anything like that.
But your parents aren't rock stars. I mean, it's like, I feel like it would be weird if he wasn't still youthful, you know?
Yes, he is a youthful guy. And I think that this is one of the last eras where he's at the top of his game vocally. So that Mean Street, that didn't strike you of like, hey, this is a Van Halen gem per se. That's very interesting to me, what your mind must have been thinking when you were playing Mean Street, because you weren't like a catalog diehard.
No. God, I mean, it's kind of embarrassing that I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I was just trying to like, it was a lot of songs that we had to play. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to learn these songs. I'm just going to, I'm going to listen as much as I can to whatever like tracks they send me. And yeah, yes, I think I must've been aware in my head that Mean Streets was Van Halen, but I think it was more like, I wasn't like, what is the significance of this to Dave? It was like, what is the significance of this in this project? And how can I make sure that my part sounds good?
Yeah. A funny, weird, quick, ongoing story. But before I cut myself off and then give you the floor to talk about what it is that we should be looking for besides your short film that's now in festivals, is one of Dave's security guards, or his main one, is a guy named Animal. And he was in the background of a couple of scenes there. He was on Dave's
Is he the black guy?
Yes.
Okay, yes, I remember him.
He was Eazy-E's bodyguard, Bone Thugs and Harmony before Dave. And so I've been trying to track him down to ultimately interview him because that guy was around for everything. I found him on Facebook and I wrote, hey, Animal, it's Darren, blah, blah, blah. And Facebook immediately flagged me for hate speech because calling somebody an animal
oh my gosh,
is hate speech and bullying and harassment. And then you think about the video that you were in, about how unguarded it is. And sometimes you go, maybe some things are better now in 2021, but a lot of things aren't.
Well, it just makes me, I think the thing about anything problematic, whether it's like putting Animal in a turban, shirtless, I mean, you must have seen that. It's in one of the scenes, right? And all the girls and the various costumes, some of which they're less covered up than others, some of which they're actually naked, all that stuff, it still happens today, right? We put more scrutiny on it. But I think it's also a matter of, do you say yes to the gig? And I'm not, and yes, there's a lot of Me Too stuff that has happened in every part of the entertainment industry and beyond. I mean, in politics and like it's been a hard world for women for a long time. And I'd be the first to say that. But as I said, like, I always felt, but maybe this is my privilege, feeling like I could say no to a gig. But if I didn't feel comfortable, I felt like I could say no, but you know what? I was hardly ever made to feel uncomfortable. And I certainly was comfortable on Dave's gig. Like, it was interesting. I did notice the way, and this is not to talk badly of Dave, but I felt like when he would come into like the makeup room or to check on everybody and how they're doing, I felt as if the way he talked to me was a little bit different from the way he talked to the bunnies. And it wasn't worse. He wasn't worse to them, but I felt like there was more of a level of familiarity with them that perhaps just comes with the fact that they were wearing less clothing and they had a very different job on his video, which was to be the party. They bring the party, right? They're supposed to be like wiggling around and looking amazing and propping Dave up, propping up his masculinity, so to speak, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas my role was being part of his musical prop. I was a girl, but I was there to help make him sound great. And he does sound great. But I did feel like he was always really respectful to me, the way he would be like, oh, you look amazing today. Like he would compliment me. It's not like he was hands off verbally. He was hands off physically. Let's make that clear. He was totally hands off, but verbally he was so like, he would be really complimentary, but like not at all in a sleazy way. And I felt like he wasn't sleazy to the bunnies in front of me, at least, but it was more like there was more of a level of joking, and perhaps his guard was just more down, because I don't know if that's just Dave, or if the fact that Playboy bunnies even existed in this world, that men felt that they could talk to them in a certain way. I don't know. I didn't get to know any of them well at all. The triplets were really sweet. They were definitely the friendliest of the girls. But I kind of got the feeling that they were all enjoying themselves. You know, I could be wrong, but it felt to me like no one was being exploited. They knew what the gig was when they signed up. Like, this is what they do for a living. They wear skimpy outfits or no outfits, and they look great. And that's part of the drill. Now, part of the drill is not being manhandled or worse. I hope that didn't happen. I didn't really see anything like that. It really, as I said, it felt more like a fun, like a party atmosphere, but there could have been plenty of things I didn't see. I just didn't feel like that was Dave's vibe, though. Like, Dave can get girls, you know?
Yeah. It's an act that he's, careless or anything like that. And I think that you can take the amazing fact of, I think you're the only female performer to have played with Dave on stage ever.
Oh, wow.
Past or present, Roxy Petrucci, the drummer from Vixen, supposedly she auditioned and almost had the gig in the mid 80s, but I think you're the only past or present. So at the very least, that's something to pass along in your legacy.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's really cool. Yeah. I mean, well, so that leads me to actually a really very kind of sweet story that I was going to share with you. So after the fact, like quite a bit after the fact, I cannot remember when. I'm sorry. My memory is very hazy it was like 20 years ago, right? More than 20 years, possibly. Since we're not even sure when it actually happened. It might've been like 99 now that I think about it, but, it could be, right? Could be. Because who knows how long it took them to put it together. And then the VHS tape arrived in your mailbox. Who knows? Yeah. But anyway, the point is, months later, probably like a long time later, his assistant, who I think his name was Matt. That sounds familiar.
Sensio?
That's right, Matt Sensio, of course, great. Yeah. So as I said, I actually have an okay memory, but it's like, I needed it jogged.
You need to put it towards actually like being a mother and like working, and I have to put it towards trivia. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Investigating people in trivia. Yes.
Yes. So months after the fact, I think, I get this call from Matt, and he's like, hey, hold for Dave. And I was like, oh, okay, great. I mean, it still like amused me, even though I lived in Hollywood, I wasn't talking to that many celebrities. I was, getting hired for gigs. So like to be told to hold for someone just still makes me laugh. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, so I hold for Dave. And so Dave gets on the phone. And he says, hey, Melissa, how are you? Whatever, great. Hope you're well. Like, use polite. And then he launches in. He's like, hey, so I've decided I want to learn all about the violin. I've become like super into the violin. I want to know all about the violin, and I want you to teach me. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. How do you want me to teach you? Like, what are you looking for? That's great. And he was like, okay, I want you to go to Tower Records, just buy all this different music for me to listen to. I want you to get me all these different albums that like show the violin. He's like, Matt will give you whatever you want, like get whatever you want. Like there's no budget. I was like, okay, great. This is when we still went to Tower Records and bought CDs, right? Back in the day. But he said, but listen, he said, I don't want you to just buy me like the typical violin pieces that everyone knows, things that are always played. I want you to, I want to know what you listen to. I want to know what was formative for you. I want to know what's influential for you. And he said, he gave me a huge compliment. Then he said, I love the way you play. I think you're a really great musician, and I want your sensibilities. I want what kind of made you become the violinist that you are, which was really a huge compliment. And I was really honored. I was like, thank you. That truly means a lot. And Hollywood's a tough place, and being a musician in Hollywood is not easy. So to get something like that after the fact from someone as famous as Dave, especially months after working with him, was really made me feel good, So anyway, so I said, okay, great. So let me get this straight. you want a certain number of CDs, and you want it to be just like really unusual violin music, right? Something that's like something I love, but that might not be to everyone's taste. Anyway, whatever. So we talked about it a bit more. And I said, great, I look forward to this. This will be really fun for me. So I kind of made a list for myself of things I thought might be interesting. And then I went to Tower and I found all these things that were, I think I gave him some some Django Reinhardt, and there's this really Stefan Grappelli. It's a pretty famous jazz. Oh, I think he's been dead for a little while, but he's like an older French jazz violinist, and he's amazing, but it's totally different from something that like I would do. Like I can't play like that, but I also thought it was really fun and different. So that's something like that. And then I remember I got a bunch of sonatas by, and then a very classical, but very kind of like super almost atonal, like early 20th century music by this Belgian virtuoso named Eugene Isai. And he wrote these 6 solo sonatas for the violin, and they're incredibly hard. They're like extremely virtuosic. He was a violin virtuoso himself, and then he wrote them. And apparently he wrote them in like an opium fueled haze in like a week, which I don't know if I believe this story, but who knows, but
Right.
they're from like 1917, maybe something like that, pretty early 20th century, but they're really crazy pieces and they're amazing. And they're classical, but they're so strange and almost bordering on atonal that they're so hard. They're not played very much. And they're so strange musically that people don't listen to them like that often. So I remember I found that for Dave because I just thought, it's so weird and different, and no one else is going to tell him to listen to that. Like even people that know a lot about classical music might not necessarily know those pieces unless they're real like violin geeks. You know what I mean?
And so you gave him those CDs, and then
yes, I can't remember what else I gave him. I think I bought about 6 to 8 CDs. I mean, I tried to find stuff that I thought was really unique and cool, but that also really important. Like I didn't want to only just give him weird stuff too. I got him, so I think I probably gave him like the Brahms Violin Concerto, which is like a huge violin repertoire piece, but it's so beautiful. And if you want to learn about the violin, you have to listen to the strange and the beautiful. But I tried to pick beautiful that wasn't like something that you hear on the radio all the time. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And if I can add on to, I don't know if you're going to tell me more about, and then he calls me and goes, this music sucked. No, I'm kidding. I didn't know. No. I think maybe Matt might've like sent me a text like a couple weeks later saying, hey, Dave really liked it. Thanks so much. That was cool. The CDs worked out or something. I don't. That then like leads to my theory of the man says, I'm going to learn everything I can about blank. I'm going to get somebody who knows that to show me the stuff. I'm going to experience it. I'm going to memorize it. And then anytime somebody takes me to test to it, I'm going to immediately wow them with a 5 to 7 minute spiel or demonstration.
Yeah.
So
But
then
that's,
that makes you to go,
yeah.
Did he ever work with a cello player? And then go,
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel like, cello is in so much kind of rock and pop music. It's actually more popular than the violin, I think, because it actually has a slightly better timbre and range. It can kind of go nicely with a human vocals, whereas the violin is so treble, it can sometimes interfere with human vocals. So it just kind of depends on the vibe a band wants to go for. But I've done a lot of gigs with rock cello, and I know a lot of friends who've done a lot of really fun gigs with using their cello as more of a rock instrument. But yeah, I think the thing about Dave is I think he's a pretty curious person. That was the feeling. Like he was curious about things. I think he had kind of a voracity for life. He wanted to learn. I think he wanted to just like drink in life. And if life brought him like violin, then he might want to learn more about the violin. And if life brought him to wanting to be an EMT, want to get out there and save some lives. I don't know, because I didn't get to know him personally, but just from watching him operate and working with him, the bit that I did, I got the feeling that he was like pretty intellectually hungry, actually, which is not something I would say about every musician I've worked with.
And, back to you and what you're up to these days. I mean, your credits, Dave is not even the tip of the iceberg. It's like a fraction of the tip of the iceberg. A.R. Rahman.
Yeah. Oh, I'm impressed you know about him. That's cool that you know who he is. He's really amazing.
Oh, and then he had that super group with Mick Jagger and Joss Stone. I got to interview Joss Stone a week or two ago, and everyone's in awe of him.
Yes. He's incredible. So actually, that was a really fun gig because I got to work with him before he was really famous in Hollywood. So it was I think it was just it was not that he necessarily changed, but I mean, it was just a different vibe. Probably he was super famous in England. In England. Well, he was famous in England. He was famous in India, but like the Indian diaspora is all over the world. So people who are from sort of Indian or Pakistani or Bangladeshi heritage were obsessed with him. Everyone loved him. I mean, I met people in England who were obsessed with him, and I met people in America who were from the diaspora that they didn't grow up in India, but they loved him and they were very into Bollywood and his soundtracks and everything. But it was kind of fun that I got to play with him. It was through a very random connection. He ended up working with an old friend of mine, and I can't remember how he met him. But my old friend was like a choir director and arranged music, and he was back east. He was a university college choir director, and I cannot remember how they met, but they ended up working together. And my friend was a really beautiful arranger. Like he could write just amazing like vocal and I think symphonic musical arrangements for Raymond. So he did a lot of like trying to convert some of the Bollywood stuff into making it concert-wise, like concertizing, so that they could play in so not just with, because A.R. Rahman always had like his own Indian kind of backup band, so to speak. So there usually would be like a cellist and a violinist, but also lots of more kind of traditional instruments. So the drums, that kind of thing. So anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. Let me be concise for you. My friend who got me the gig, was getting Raymond to come. It was actually a really big thing for my friend. He got A.R. Raymond to come and perform with his university choir. He was at University of Miami, Ohio. So out in Ohio.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And so Raymond came to perform with a couple of like backup singers, and he brought his cellist from India, who's this really great guy who I'm still like friends with on Facebook and stuff. He just brought a couple people out from India for these performances, but he wanted to play this violin concerto that he'd actually written for Vanessa May, and she had recorded, but she had never performed it live. I think she just recorded it for one of her albums. So when Raymond said to my friend, who's this choir director, he had all these singers, but he didn't have a violinist. And he said, I really want to play this violin concerto. And my friend was like, I have this old friend we went to the Aspen Music Festival together when I was like 14. And Aspen is like this huge classical music thing. It's like most of the people from Juilliard go there every summer. And so my friend had gone out there to study in the summer, had studied cello, and he ended up becoming more of a singer and a choir director himself. But that's how I'd met. We'd met when we were teenagers. And we kept in touch, and we knew each other in LA. And so when he got this gig with Raymond, he said, I know a violinist. So I got to play this incredible violin concerto. And this is kind of like the David Lee Roth gig in terms of it was before social media. So I never got like a great copy of me playing it. And it was amazing. We played at like a couple arenas in like Michigan and Ohio for like 10,000 people. I mean, these were like sold out concerts. People came from all over, who were mostly people of Indian background, came to watch Raymond perform in Ohio and Michigan, because I don't know if he's ever been back to those places since.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably. So it was a really big deal. It was actually this really incredible thing, but he hadn't worked in Hollywood. So he was just like, he wasn't surrounded by anyone Hollywood, if that makes sense. He just had his Indian people with him that were like his crew that he really trusted for like his whole career. And then my friend was an old friend that he had worked with on doing all these arrangements. And my friend had been to India and performed with him in India. And so I actually performed with Raymond a couple times. I did some stuff with him in LA that was not solo. It was just like putting together a string group for him. And then after that, that's when I went out and I did the violin concerto. But it was a really amazing piece, like really beautiful and really obviously very kind of Bollywood inspired. But that was a great gig. And it was unfortunate that I didn't get to work with him again more, but just,
Hey, Slumdog Millionaire had to take off and make him a superstar. What can you do?
Yeah.
So all that said, like Dr. Dre and AR and Sinatra Jr. and Posthumous Sr. and the Jonas Brothers, and David Lee Roth, you have credits that impress. No matter what you listen to, they impress the people.
Thank you. Very kind.
So there's the TED Talk. There's the novels. You might come back to that. But
sure.
In the meantime, what's the best way to follow you online? Is it at Melissa Violinist?
So I'm on Twitter. I think all my handles are the same. It's at Melissa Violin.
Violin.
At Melissa
Not
Violin.
Violinist. Okay.
No, just, I don't know, Melissa Violin. It was just like, it was simple. I kept it that way. So I think that's my handle on Instagram and Twitter. I mean, I'm really not great with social media. Like I don't use it very much. I would definitely, if you requested me on Instagram, then I would follow you back, but I don't use it very much. It's private right now, partly because I have my small son. Mm-hmm. So I kind of, and my Facebook page, same thing. Like if you send me a request, I'm happy to interact with you because now we have an interaction, but I shut everything down. It made it pretty private except for Twitter, because I don't talk about my son, but I'm not that great on social media. I sometimes wonder if I could be better on it. I mean, I don't know. It would be interesting to talk to you as a journalist, if you've ever felt like it's helped you journalism wise, or if you've seen stars that you've talked to that you think social media has really helped them. Because I find that it feels like a slog to me. And I felt I think it comes back to me not feeling like I'm a natural performer. I didn't want to be like me, or here's this, here's that. And so I've never been great at self-promotion. I probably need to change that, especially since I'm trying to take my filmmaking seriously. And that's a really great way to have more people see my work. So in terms of Instagram, I keep it private, but I also don't really use it, but I think I probably should. But I think I would just like get rid of any pictures of my son and then just start over and have it be very like my profile, but my profile as an artist, not my profile personally, if that makes sense.